Well, hello everyone. I am Mark Allen here in Bellingham, Washington. And behind me is the building where our one and only TV station, KVOS Television, used to broadcast from. Now you may know that I've already done one video of the history of KVOS. However, I have learned a lot, and I'm still in the process of learning a lot about the station, its history, and the man by the name of Rogan Jones. This video, however, is a plea for help. I am trying to find out just what things were like in this building at the time, and I've learned there are actually two incarnations of this building. It started with a very small building with no video facilities, just a single audio studio where the newscaster would simply read the news from the newspapers, which, by the way, started an interesting court fight. And I'll talk about that in the main video. The challenge I'm facing is that I cannot seem to find any photographs of what was inside this building, both for the first iteration of this building and then after they did a remodeling and expansion of this building. All that I have found was a very, very hard to reach, horribly exposed blueprint that I retrieved from the archives here in Bellingham. It must have been filed by Rogan Jones when he wanted to expand this building. My goal is to use a special piece of software called Blender, which, by the way, is open source. It is extremely difficult but extremely fun in its challenge to learn how to use. My goal is to create an animated, either how you call it, fly-through or walk-through of both of the incarnations of this building and what was inside them, the layout, the amenities, the furnishings, whatever I can either find doing research or just pull out of my own imagination or feeble attempt at reasoning based on my own background in broadcast engineering and overall engineering common sense. I'm going to be showing you some detailed photographs of this building and copies of the blueprints I have found in hopes that I can jiggle some of your memories of those of you who have been in this building in the past. And I would like to take my ideas, especially those of the original small building here, and see if they match with your memories. Any comments, criticism, critique, you can email me, as you can see on the screen, Allen, A-L-L-Y-N, at WELL.com. The email address will remain on the screen throughout this video. I have also understood that Rogan Jones actually started KVOS Radio, which became KGMI Radio. That was not started here. It was in the mezzanine of what was the Hotel Henry on State Street and Holly Street, which is now, of course, is our YMCA. I got one or two photographs there. I'm going to try to recreate the physical environment using Blender so I can do an animated walkthrough of that facility as well. But once again, there are no floor plans I could find, so I'm going to go by, once again, my own imagination and my own reasoning of engineering best practices as far as broadcast engineering, acoustics, and of course, physical design in relation to acoustics and broadcast engineering. So, again, I want to thank you very much in advance for your help in trying to help me figure out what in heck went on both here in both of its incarnations, as well as what went on at the mezzanine of the Hotel Henry, now your wonderful illustrious YMCA. So as always, I look forward to hearing from you. Enjoy my video, and of course, as always, I love you all. Okay, this is the only photograph that I have been able to get my hands on depicting the front of the building on Ellis Street. However, I don't know if this was the original or first incarnation of the building or after he did the expansion. Now, before I go on, what I am looking for is several things. First of all, if any of you notice any very serious mistakes I have made in my modeling of the building and what is where, please send me an email. My email address is on the screen towards the bottom, and it will stay there throughout this video. As you can see, and take note, you can see my mouse. Let's see if I can do this right. There, you can see my mouse. Here is where the brick line ends, right here on this side and on the corner. You can see it right here. I'm going to show you one of the photographs that has that, but you notice this extends beyond the brick line to here. Now, these windows are a little bit different than these, okay? So, keep that in mind when I show you the blueprints, which I'm going to try to show you next. What you see here is the only blueprint of the first floor that I was able to find. This came from a microfiche file at City Hall. I don't know if this was Rogan Jones' preliminary blueprint as part of his application process, or is this the final plan? Based on my own personal engineering knowledge, there are some deficiencies I have noticed in these plans, and there are some clues. First of all, I need to figure out what was the original layout, the first incarnation. Now, I don't know. Yes, you can see my mouse. See this wall here? You notice that this wall is thicker than this wall here and thicker than these walls here. This wall is also thicker. And you notice there is a load-bearing column here, here, here. However, you don't notice it here, and that's because this blueprint was cut off. This must have extended up to here, about here, and across to here. You can just see the edge of the load-bearing corner column here, where my mouse is here. This is the main entrance right here to the building you saw in that old photograph. Now, you see a load-bearing column of this vintage here. You see another one here. And you can just see another one here. And you can see another one here. I'm going to make a harebrained guess based on some common sense that this building here, from here to here to here and to here, was the original building that Rogan Jones purchased. This building existed before KVOS took it over. He made a first edition, which included going from here out to here, and you can see some load-bearing columns going all the way out to here. And you can just barely see something right here, and this is a thick wall here going all the way back to here. So what he probably did is, one more thing. You notice there's a step here. This was the original building with steps going down because the grading was different. Now here's a clue that suggests that he added this part for his first incarnation. See this little room right here with the 45-degree wall? This suggests to me that this was his first sound studio. When KVOS first went on the air, there were no cameras. There was no video cameras. There was no need for a full-blown video studio such as this one here. All he had were some film cameras, and he had what's called a slide projector, that he could take stills or slides, insert them into a machine, which, by the way, he made. Mr. Jones was very well known for his shoestringing and making as much as he can on his own to save every penny. So in one of these small rooms here, there was a slide or film projector that allowed him to project film on the television, but no cameras. One of his innovations to do the newscast was to have a slide with the KVOS logo on the video, and you would hear a voice reading the news. The person reading the news would be doing it in this room here, and his innovation was to simply read the news from the newspapers. This, by the way, initialized a very interesting court case and decision that resulted in radio and TV media to read the news from the newspapers without violating copyright. More on that later, but in order to do that, he needed a sound studio. And you notice the 45-degree wall you see right here. That is very important for a sound studio. That makes a big difference in reducing echoing in the room, because the sound cannot just simply bounce back and forth. It's going to be bouncing at different angles, okay? There's also the column in the corner of the room, which also serves to mitigate echoing. So this had to have been his first sound studio. There's no other room in the original building that had a 45-degree wall. Now this is his addition here. Notice the main studio has a 45-degree wall for the same reason, along with the master control room here and the production control room here. So it's the same thing. So seeing that, I'm seeing that the first incarnation came down here to this corner. It came all the way, I think, either to here or most likely out to here, okay? So it probably ended here. Now for the renovation, he knocked that wall out to put in the addition. So it probably ended right here. He still had this staircase and this staircase. That's the guess I'm going to use moving forward with my modeling of the old building as well as the new building. Let's look at some photographs to try to show you how I have come with some of these guesses. Here is a photograph of the building as I took it 2 days ago in May of 2021. This, I believe, you can see, let me make sure you can see my arrow. Yes, you can. This is the boundary of the original building that Mr. Jones purchased right here. It was brick here, 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 and here. Now, the brick probably extended all the way up here, but they covered it with this sheathing to conceal the brick wall. This, I believe, is the addition that Mr. Jones added soon after he purchased this part of the building. This is where the sound studio is, somewhere over in here. Now the tower is in the corner, just like what it is now. So this is, again, this is the front of the building as you see it from Ellis Street. Here is the right-hand side of the building. Here's the tower, the radio tower, and here's the front of the building. Ellis Street is over here, and you can see the awning that they added to it. Now, if you look carefully, you see a brick column right here. That's the load-bearing wall that I showed you. Now, if you look carefully, you can see brick walls extending to this point here, where my pointer is here, which is the edge of the shed. Well, I am going to make a guess that the shed is part of the later addition. That the original building that he purchased, the back of it is right here, where my arrow is, right at the corner of the tower, which makes sense because he had to keep the tower near the footprint of the building in order to route his cabling to the tower, and he may have been very well limited with the boundaries on the property on which the building was on that he first purchased. Now here is a wider shot of the right-hand side of the building. that offers what I think are some interesting clues. You see that the facing of the building is different from here to here. Okay, first of all, the original brick wall, as I showed you earlier, ends here. So this is the boundary of the original building. Now, when I was there a couple of days ago, this part right here, this facing of the building is grubby and looks old. You notice that the doors are not even. I strongly do not think that this facade was remodeled by the medical facility that owns this building now. However, this facade looked a lot cleaner and a lot newer. In addition, it has a sign with the medical tenants currently in the building. Furthermore, the address sign looks brand new, which gives me a clue that this here was part of Rogan Jones adding the addition to the back of the building, which includes the shed, which is here, which extends the first floor. And the windows here look different, very different than the windows in front of the building. So I'm guessing this was the first building. It was probably the brick exterior when Rogan Jones bought that building. Then much later on, he added this, and even later yet, the medical folks added this facade, but did not change this footprint of this part of the building. Now, here's some more interesting clues. First of all, right here, this was obviously added by the medical facility. This has got an elevator, which is required by ADA, or American Disabilities Act, especially for a medical facility. This wall here looks brand new. Now, however, this wall here, if you draw an imaginary line from this roof line across all this to this roof line, it looks like these were at one time were level, which means that this and this were part of Rogan Jones' expansion of the building. If you take this away here, this will intersect with this here in the original entrance, the back entrance, with this door, but moved over to here. So the medical facility had to have moved this door out to accommodate the new elevator assembly, which is this here. I also notice that these windows here are similar to these windows here, which makes sense. Even though this facade is new, this first floor must have been part of Rogan Jones' expansion of the building, but there are offices there. However, there was nothing much on the second floor at this location. So these windows that look much different, those were added by the medical facility. We're going to revisit this a little bit. Now the windows, the lower floor windows I showed you are these and these offices here. Here's the entrance that the medical facility moved to about here. Now I'm going to show you the second floor plans, which unfortunately are nowhere near as clear as this. And by the way, to make this clear, I had to run it through some image processing capabilities of a wonderful open source piece of software called GIMP. So let's get to the second floor. Okay, here is the second floor. This is very difficult to read. Now, just to get your bearings, the original building, this is the front here, most likely extended out to, it's hard to tell if it extended here or here. I'm going to make a harebrained guess that the second floor, well, this is really tricky. Because if you look, this wall looks thin here. I don't know if that was this back of the original building or was this double wall. But if you look at this looks like an exit that went somewhere. So I am going to guess, maybe, that the original building, look at the proportions, goes to here, to here, which means that it's, okay, that makes sense, because it could be that this was the storage area for the original building. This was a door going from the hallway to the storage area. Then, when Rogan Jones bought the building, I don't know why he did this. He covered this with a second wall. Then this wall must have come all the way out to, oh boy, here, because he did a remod. This came out to here, then to here for the L, to about here and around. That was the L, from here to here to here to here, and so forth and around. Now, remember, this is with the new remod, so he probably added this for sound blocking for the studio, but this is a VIP viewing lounge with a picture window here. So he added this wall to block traffic noise. He knocked the back of the original building out to create this lounge here. Then, of course, he extended the end of the L of the building for all this out here. That's pretty much all I could tell. It is so hard to tell. There's a double wall here as well. That's why I feel that the windows on the second floor were not part of this. That they were, the doctors or the medical facility must have knocked this out, then created their new windows, and they completely changed this. That's about all I can figure out for this second floor. Now, I'm going to show you some of the capabilities of Blender, which is a tool I am using to model this building and what was going on inside it. Enjoy. Now, what you see here is on the Blender dashboard. I can move this around, as you can see. So this is a construction I did of what I think is with the original building. Now, I did make a mistake here. I am going to take a guess that the original building had this staircase, and I forgot to include it in the building. So I have to do some adjustments here. Now, here's the entrance right here. Now, it's hard to see. Let me move this. Okay, so people come into here. The Ellis Street is out here. Okay, the people come into here. The receptionist desk, I'm guessing, is probably something like, okay, you can't draw anything on here, but it's here, right here where my mouse is. This is the office that was I'm guessing this must have been, say, a clerical office, or the receptionist may have been in here. And my guess is that when Rogan bought the building, this was the extent of the building. Now, I made some of my own imaginative artistic changes to the windows. I allow myself a little bit of artistic freedom on the amenities of the building, but the layout should be very close to what I see on the blueprint. So you come into here, the reception's here. This is the back entrance. Now this is all outdoors here. The parking lot may have been back here. The tower is pretty much in the same place here. There's a side door here. And I'm guessing this must have been engineering in here, where the transmitting equipment was, where the cabling that goes up the tower. Now, coming over here, this could very well have been the accounting office or a clerical office here. Small hallway here. Now, the sound studio that I indicated is here. This is the sound studio. The movie projectors could have been in here. Now, there's no door here. Or maybe in here. We just don't know, okay? And that's, yeah, they do the what they call a kinescope. That's how you project a slide onto video. So he bought the building, which is this, and he added this on to get himself something, to get something on the air, is my guess. So now I'm going to go to what I have. By the way, the second floor of this is not yet done. I concentrated on the first floors of both the new building and the old building, but I need to do some reconciliation of the second floor of the old building to see if the boundary is here or the boundary is here, and just where I think the boundary is over here. So I'm going to now go to what we have after the addition was made. Okay, here you see what I have done with the building after the addition. Now, this part there were no prints for at all, so the shed is just open. I left the roof on the shed. Let's see if I can take that off. Okay, there's nothing going on here. This is the doors and the are based on my observations of the shed right now, and I walked around it today. There are a couple of doors on this side of it and a door facing the tower. Currently, the tower is fenced in. I'm guessing that may have not been true at the very beginning. The entry door, the side door here, is still there. So I'm taking a guess, since it's nearly impossible to read most of the room designations on the prints. I'm taking some guesses. The employees entered here, where you see my arrow. This must have been the locker room and mudroom, where the employees come in, and they go out into the hallway here. The guests and clients, of course, will make the grand entrance through the formal entry here to the reception area. Now, you notice the office here is removed. Here are the two picture windows I was talking about, and here is the client's lounge right here. It was probably a much nicer room with wooden wainscoting. They can see into the studio. People in the waiting room can also see into the studio looking through the two picture windows. I am guessing this is the accounting office here. This is where, if you are an advertiser, you go into here to pay your bills. Now, this room on the print showed no current doorway, and it's kind of an odd shape because of the sound studio, the former sound studio. And by the way, they removed the door in the remod. So this must have been some sort of filing room or something like that. I am taking an educated guess that this corner room, since it had no doorway, at least in the prints, was not a private office, but most likely may have been an employee lounge or break room. Every TV station I worked at had something like this. Just for the fun of it, and for artistic sake, I added a doorway to it. Now, here, these offices, I don't know what they were. This is an office. I don't know what it was. Now, the film viewing room is right here. This is your main studio here. Here are your 2 picture windows here that allows a person in the production control room to see into the studio. Here is the master control room, which does not need to see into the studio. Outside here is a small storage area. I'm not really sure what it's for. You had a door into the studio here. You had a door into the studio here. This is engineering here and storage. I'm guessing that props may have been stored here, and they built the shed here for engineering for the equipment for the tower. Here's more engineering and storage out here. This is all kind of open. What I'm going to try to show you now, some of the nice features of Blender. This is Blender. Blender is a piece of open source software that allows you to model things. It allows you to do animations. It's very powerful. It is extremely difficult to learn. It's a steep learning curve, but it is quite powerful, and feature films have been made using this software. I'm going to try to give you some demonstrations on what can be done with Blender. What you see here is a quick and dirty rendering using a less than true render. This is called the Evc Render. It's used to kind of look at what your animation will look like, but it doesn't do the full ray tracing, bouncing, and stuff like that, which takes a long time. This is kind of a flyover of the entire thing. If I can play this thing for you. You were flying over the building, seeing it from all the sides. Okay, you can see the engineering areas in front of you. I'm looking at it from the left-hand side. You can see the sound studio on the right, some offices, and the employee lounge in the far right corner. We're going to go back to the front of the building, and we're going to go down to the sound level as if you're going to make a grand entrance into the building. Something like that. Now, this rendering took about 2 hours to do. If I were to do this using the Cycles render, which is the high-quality rendering engine, it may very well take about 12 to 15 hours to do the rendering for that brief video. What I'm going to show you next is a very brief video I did of making the entrance to the building and looking through the two picture windows and taking a look into the accounting office. Now this is a very short recording. You're seeing the building from the street in the early evening. The light you see here, you see in the tower, I've simulated both moonlight from the moon as well as early evening with a dark blue sky. You can also see the lights on the outside of the building, plus the light coming from the windows. The other rendering that you saw earlier would not allow you to see through glass. This rendering does. You notice the windows on the right, they're blue. That's because the locker room has blue walls. So let's go ahead and see if we can go forward a little bit. We're going to the sidewalk, opening the double doors, going on into the lobby. I'm going to stop it here. You can see through the rear of the lobby. This is the little hallway going to the back. The door right here, the door to your, in the far distance to your left, is the corner door going into the studio. You can partially see the wainscoting of the guests, the lounge on to the left. So let's go a little bit further. Now here, you can see through the picture window of the waiting room, looking across the hall to the picture window into the studio. Now, it just so happens that through that picture window on the other corner of the studio, you can partially see the picture window going into the corridor at the far side of the studio. Let's go on a little bit further. Now there's a waiting area looking down the hallway. You can see right through if you look through the opening, on the right hand side of the opening, you can see a window off into the distance. That room was the original sound recording studio. There's a door to the left, you can't see it in the distance, that goes to the employee lounge. Now the door that's close to you on your left is one of the two doors that goes into the accounting office. And that's where this video ends. So this demonstrates the capabilities of the Cycles rendering that allows you to see through glass and allows light reflecting off of the shiny wood. So I'm going to try to do for you now, but I don't know if it's going to work. I'm just going to show you some samples of the capabilities of the rendering. In order to do this video I did for you, I had to do it in fairly low quality. Otherwise, I would have had to wait 24 hours at least for rendering for this very brief video to complete. So I'm going to try to show you some stills of the kind of quality that we can get from this rendering. Here you see a rendering of looking through the glass doors into the employees' lounge. You notice you can see the details of the beveled glass on the windows, and you can barely see the blue light coming in from outside. I'm going to try an experiment and move the camera to the outside and look into this room from the outside. Now here you can see, looking in one of the windows into the employee lounge, you can see the double doors going to the hallway, part of the hallway on the right-hand side. You can see the wood paneling on the walls on the left-hand side. Of course, the beveling will affect what you see, and this demonstrates the power of this rendering engine. This would not have been possible, but it took 5 minutes to render this one image. Now here is a shot looking from the hallway beyond the reception area and looking out the main front doors. You can partially see the sidewalk going to the street along with the outdoor lights. Toward you on the right, you can see part of the wainscoting, the wooden wainscoting to the client's lounge, which is the room to the right. I'm going to try to show you now, if I can, is to go into the production control room and look out through the picture windows into the studio. Now here, you're standing in the production control room. You're looking out the window through the small hallway in the window of the studio. Then in the far side of the studio, you see the window going into the client's lounge. Then to the left, in the left-hand side of that, you can see a partial view of the window going into the waiting area. On the far right, you see the window going into the corridor to the offices. On the far left, you see the door at the corner of the studio. And what's interesting with this is that each window is modeled with 2 layers of glass, which is typical for an acoustical blocking window. The rendering does show some of the distortion that you get through multiple layers of glass. Well, here we are. Turns out this is quite remarkable. You're standing in the more cramped reception area of the older building. Right in front of you, you see the office that was removed after the remodeling. And to the right is the rear door that goes outside. You can see the blue sky and the moonlight on the grass outside, but if you look carefully, you can see a reflection of the front door of the building that's opposite of this rear door. This is the original building, the building that I think he purchased at first before he even added in the small addition to the left of the building. I'm going to try an experiment. I'm going to move the camera outdoors, just outside of that back door, looking in. Let's see what happens. Now here, you are looking in from outside the back door through the lobby, through the front glass doors, to the sidewalk outside. On the right-hand side, you can just see the door going into the accounting office, which is the same in both the old building and the later revision of the building. Now, very interesting. I didn't know this till now. If you look carefully toward the lower right-hand corner, you see the metal handle of the door. You can see the nighttime sky and a bit of the moonlight reflected on that handle. So this gives you the power of this tool in doing modeling. So I think that's it for now. But once again, please, if you have any more information about this building, about what was in it, and if you know of any serious mistakes that I made, please email me at the address you see on your screen. Thank you very much for watching. And if you see me out and about in town, of course, say hi. I love you all.